Well, that sure was a game of hockey, I guess. Technically speaking, I guess you could consider it that. Let's break that down and why it was so frustrating on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. So let's talk about that game, because lots to talk about, I think. I want to talk about the goaltending. I want to talk about the defense for the Blue Jackets. I want to talk about the Igor Chinakhov problem. But there's some good things as well. I want to talk about the Sillinger-Coyle-Olivier line. I like that a lot. The power play is working for now, knock on wood. But let's talk about the game as a whole first, because this felt like a real kind of mid-season, everyone is tired, no one wants to be here game, right? I know that it looks good on the shot count. So the Blue Jackets had 37 shots to the Capitals 23, but they still lost 4-3, right? And I think looking at that, you're like, oh, okay, well, Jet Greaves really struggled in that game. And the answer is yes, he did. However, I'm not willing to put all of those goals on him. I'm like, I would maybe put one of those goals on him, maybe, right? 3 goals were deflections. 2 of those goals were friendly fire. One of the goals was just a really boneheaded move from Dante Fabro, who I thought didn't have a great game last night, who just kind of skated the puck out by the goalie, and then they just took the puck off him. It was a really weird, un-Fabro-like maneuver, and it frustrating for many, many reasons, right? But I think Jack could have been better? Sure, but I think he made some excellent saves. And I think he got really let down by his team. And I'm sure that will become a constant refrain this season. If the defense keeps playing like that, then it certainly will be. Again, I know on paper it looks like they had a pretty solid defensive night, only allowing 23 shots, but I don't know, and we'll talk about the pairings in a minute and my thoughts on those, but there was a lot of brain farts from basically every defenseman, right? I thought Zach Werenski had a fine game. I thought Denton Matejchuk, in limited minutes was fairly solid, considering he's just this is his first preseason action. But I thought the Provorov-Severson pairing was kind of a disaster. I thought Fabro had a really weak game. Just lots of frustration from this game, and especially when it comes to the defense. And again, we'll talk about the pairings in a second here, but it was just kind of it looked like no one was on the same page, right? Especially for the defense. The forwards I had less of a problem with, although I still had some problems with them. But it very much felt like, well, it felt like a game where this was the first time that they'd had their full squad in, right? Which is kind of mostly true. Obviously, they've had some guys in and out of the lineup, and they've had guys playing with different partners, all of that stuff. But I don't like what's happening with the defense right now. Again, I'm sure Fabro will bounce back. I have no real problems with the Werenski-Fabro pairing. But the Severson-Provorov pairing, I thought, was an adventure. Is the kindest way to do that. The kindest way to say that, I think. And they have good nights and they have bad nights as a pairing, right? That was not a great night, and I don't think that they've been very good paired together like at all this preseason. I don't think they were very good paired together last season. They were good together the season before that, but that was 2 seasons ago. Just a lot of not great decision making in that pairing. A lot of very acceptable offense. I thought that Severson's offense was better, but putting those two on a line together is like, well, it's a real kind of who's driving the train, and the answer is no one really. Yes, they create a lot of offense, but they also they don't not give up a lot of offense either, right? And I thought that they were I didn't think that they were very good in that game. I don't think they work very well together, and I am really, really hoping that what this means. Well, I don't not what this means, but obviously the pairings in that game. You've got Wengsky and Fabro, which is fine, and then they're pairing Severson and Provorov together, and then Matejchuk down on the third pairing with Gabranson. And I do wonder if are those the pairings that they want? Obviously, they want to have, having Ivan Provorov play on the right side as a lefty is not ideal, even though I actually think he is better on the right than he is on the left. But then having, Matejchuk down on that third pairing with Gabranson, I don't think that's the best place for him. I think he's going to have to do too much of the heavy lifting because Gabranson isn't really good at much these days. And he is slow and is really aggressively a stay-at-home defenseman. And I think that that's not the best environment for Denton Matejchuk to develop in. I liked Matejchuk with Provorov, as frustrated as I was by Provorov at points last season. And so I really, really do hope that it's Matejchuk's first game back from injury, and from there, they'll rejiggle the pairings to make it the top four that we saw last season that they had success with, right? I don't know how likely that is. I am clinging to that as a concept. Obviously, the Blue Jackets now are off until Saturday, so we'll see, in practice what happens. Are the pairings going to get shuffled around? I really, really hope so. I don't know that I can cope with a second pairing of Provorov and Severson for the entire season. I think that might be the end of me. And I think it's a really, I think it's a not great situation for Matejchuk either. I don't think he'll develop properly on the third pairing. I think you need to give him more minutes. You need to give him more responsibility. And you need to give him a real defensive partner. And, for all my criticisms of Provorov, he was a much better option as for a defensive partner for Matejchuk than Gabranson is. And also, this leaves Jake Christensen on the outside looking in, which I think is really undeserved considering how good he's been basically the entirety of preseason. But that's another conversation. We're going to take a quick break because that's kind of all I've got about the defense right now. I'm sure if I thought real hard, I could come up with more criticisms. But I want to talk about one of the glaring problems with the forwards, which is what do we do with Igor Chinakhov? How do you fix this problem? Because I think we're really heading towards, we can't fix this problem very, very fast. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can just bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many different ways to bet, right? You can build parlays, you can play it, you can use player props, you can even follow games live. And if you think there's a comeback about to happen, put a little money on it, and it makes that game even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action, right? Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've talked about the defense. We talked a little bit about the goaltending, but I am inclined to mark this down as Jet Greaves should be allowed a knife and move on. I want to talk about the forwards because there's some positives with the forwards and there's some negatives with the forwards. So we'll talk about the negatives first, and then we'll finish on a positive note. So Igor Chinakhov has spent the last handful of practice days rotating in on the fourth line as the 13th forward, right? I think he's been quite good in this preseason so far. He's got a goal and 2 assists in the 3 games that he played prior to this most recent one. And all of the talk was if you play well, you get minutes, right? And I understand the arguments that people are making of, well, the top 6 looks good at the minute. Obviously, you want to keep that top line of Voronkov, Monahan, and Marchenko together. They like Jenner with Fantilli and Johnson, and admittedly, I don't hate that as a line. So where do you put Chinakhov? But rotating him on the fourth line just feels really I don't know what the plan is, because you say, okay, yeah, he's played well, and yeah, we're gonna put him in a position to succeed, and yeah, we're gonna do everything we can to get him going here in Columbus. But then you do this, right? And then the game comes, and I'm like, okay, Karol Marchenko's out with a mystery ailment. Apparently, he's banged up. So they put Chinakhov in his spot on that top line. I'm like, okay, great. We're going to see Chinakhov with top line minutes and playing with Sean Monahan, who he played well with at the beginning of last season. And then what happens is he plays less time than basically every other Blue Jacket. The only Blue Jacket to play less time than him is Isaac Lundestrom. Igor Chinakhov played 11:47. Now, for context, his line mates, Sean Monahan, played 19:07. Admittedly, Dmitry Voronkov only played 13 minutes. So I do think that partially this was that there was a lot of special teams time. But also, I don't understand how... I don't understand the logic behind that, right? Of, okay, we're going to put him on the top line, we're going to see what he can do, and then we're going to play him less than 12 minutes. We're going to play him less than basically every other player on the ice. And it just feels like, I know that they said that they'd had good conversations when Chinakhov came back to Columbus, and, they were going to try to figure out how to keep Chinakhov in Columbus. And they're not just going to trade him because he wants to be traded. They're going to try and get, good value back for him. If it's a trade that'll make the team better, then they'll do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they kind of turn around and are like, oh, okay, well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to hold him to some impossible standard and then put him on the fourth line. And then when we do put him on the top line, we're actually not going to play him at all. Just a really... I don't know. I don't understand what Everson's plan is here, because it really feels like they're saying one thing and doing another, right? Now, in fairness, pulling up the numbers on the night, here's the thing. Igor Chinakhov, at 5-on-5, one of the best players for the Blue Jackets, was on the ice for 17 shot attempts for and 9 against. I don't get it. And again... 5-on-5 is a different beast. There was a lot of special teams times, but a special teams time, which is where Monahan got a lot of his time from. But when you flip that to all strengths, even then it's like, okay, well, Chinakhov's still one of the best players on the ice. Kept up with Sean Monahan, kept up with Dmitry Voronkov, and I don't get it, right? I am confused. I don't understand what the plan is with Chinakhov is where I'm going with this, right? It really feels like it's game over at this point, and you're like, okay, fourth line, it's game over. And then they put him on the top line and I'm like, okay, there's something here. Obviously he's not going to stick there in hindsight. Probably that was just a placeholder for Marchenko, so they didn't have to screw with any of the other lines. And we'll talk about the other lines in a second here, and they're much more positive than this. But the thing is that line was good. At even strength, that was the best line that the Blue Jackets had. And again, going back to 5-on-5, they played less time than lines that did worse, right? They played less than the fourth line or parts of the fourth line. Zach Aston Reese played more 5-on-5 minutes than Monahan, Voronkov, and Chinakhov. And I don't. The third line, which I thought was, again, we'll talk about the third line in a minute. I liked it a lot, but I don't understand why it was playing so much at the expense of other lines, and I think that kind of ties into my Chinakhov questions, which is, what are they going to do with him? Because it really, really feels like this is kind of a foregone conclusion. And they talked about, we'll try and make it work. He's a good player. We don't want to lose him if we don't have to. But it really feels like they're kind of like, oh, well, we don't really care if we lose him or not, because we're just going to keep putting him in the bottom six and hope. And here's the thing. He's not going to become a good player in the bottom six. He's not a player that can thrive in the bottom six. He is a skilled player that is not going to be a checking player. He's not going to be a defensive player. Like, he is a when he's healthy and when he's clicking, he is a skilled top six forward, right? But I don't think that they're going to put him in that position on this team, and therefore it's just, I feel like we're just going to, I don't know how long it'll go for, but I do think it's just going to keep going in circles of, yes, Chinakhov's a good player, but there's no room for him, so we're going to put him in the bottom six and hope that he can work his way up, and that's going to, he's not going to succeed there, so we're going to, deal with that by not giving him more minutes, and it goes round and round and round and round and round, right? And my guess is that I don't think he's a Blue Jacket by Thanksgiving. Whether that's Canadian Thanksgiving or American Thanksgiving, I will let you guys figure that out. But I think by Thanksgiving, Igor Chinakhov is gone, which will suck. Depends I don't know what the return's going to be. I don't think Don Waddell has been a particularly shrewd trader for the Blue Jackets thus far. So I don't know what the return is going to be like, but I do think that by Thanksgiving, I think Chinakhov is gone. I think they tried to work it out, they said that they tried to work it out. I don't know that they actually did, which is frustrating. But let's talk about the things that I did like about this game, which is mostly the forwards, I'll be honest. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've talked about all of the negative things, and now we get to talk about the things that I liked, which was, I thought the Fantilli-Jenner-Johnson line was great. Obviously, didn't get things going at even strength, but Boone Jenner with two goals on the night. Fantilli with an assist, Johnson with an assist, I believe on separate Jenner goals, which is always a good sign. Fantilli played a ton of minutes. I think was the second highest ice time on the team, which again is a great sign. Behind only, in terms of forwards, anyway, behind only Monahan. I thought he had a really, really solid, night. If he can figure out face-offs, we'll be golden, because every other center had an above 50% on face-offs, except for Adam Fantilli, who's at 45.5. But he's getting there. He's trying. He'll get there. But I like that line a lot, and I do think that that's a line that there is some juice there. I was skeptical of it at first. I didn't think that Jenner had the juice to keep up with the kids, but I do think that actually maybe he is a very solid third guy on that line. So again, if they can get Fantilli and Johnson to do what they did last year and have Jenner play that like James Van Riemsdyk role, who I think was probably the best fit for Fantilli and Johnson last year, then I think that line's going to be in really good shape. The other line that I liked was the Sillinger-Coyle-Olivier line. Obviously, it didn't, or it did produce, actually. I'm lying. Mathieu Olivier got a goal. Elite sniper Mathieu Olivier. Not the guy that I would expect to score on that line, but if that line can create offense, then very suddenly, the Blue Jackets, who were kind of a top-heavy team last year, if they get scoring from that third line, then that's going to be really good. And, they controlled the pace of play. They played a ton. I think they might be the line that played the most at 5-on-5, if I can just shuffle my tabs around here. Charlie Coyle at 5-on-5. Charlie Coyle led all forwards in ice time with 15-19. Mathieu Olivier at 15-19 as well. Cole Sillinger at 14-54. and then it goes down like that. And they all had above 50% shot attempt rate. They all had above 50% in offense creation, so expected goals for percentage. They all created above 3/4 of a goal and allowed less than half a goal each, which I'm counting as a win. This was a real created a lot of offense and also kind of gave up a non-significant amount of offense, which is not like an ideal way to do things, but is kind of the Blue Jackets way of doing things. So we'll see how it goes. But I like that line a lot. I think there is a line there. And again, that goes back to my thing about Chinakhov, right? Of if you assume that Voronkov is locked in on that top line with Monahan and Marchenko, which seems like a safe bet at this point, and you're like, okay, well, I really like that second line of Jenna Fantilli Johnson, and I also really like that third line of Sillinger-Coyle-Olivier. Then who do you swap out Chinakhov for, right? Like, who do you swap out for Chinakhov? Like, really, the only answer that I would give is Jenna. I think I might move Olivier down to that fourth line in favor of Chinakhov, but I think it really depends on what they're hoping to do with that line, right? If they want a line with a little bit more pop, a little bit more goal scoring, Chinakhov might be the move there. If they want a line that can do a little bit of scoring and a little bit of throwing its weight around, then Olivier is probably the better option, right? And as much as I would love to have 3 skilled scoring lines, I don't think the NHL is quite built that way yet, right? So it probably behooves them to have a third line that is kind of a hybrid checking scoring line, and I think that's what they'll have with Sillinger-Coyle and Olivier. So again, it rolls back to, what do you do with Chinakhov? Do you put him on the fourth line and hope for the best? Like, again, I would play Chinakhov over any of the fourth line, frankly. I thought Isaac Lundstrom was quite good tonight. But like, Miles Wood does nothing for me. Yes, he's fast, but fast don't win games. And Zach Aston-Reese is like a perfectly cromulent fourth liner, right? I don't think he's anything special, doesn't really move the needle, but he'll go out there and he'll give you, 12 not terrible minutes a night, which is kind of all I ask for from a fourth liner, right? Chinakhov is better than all 3 of those players, I think, but that's not how a roster is constructed. So it really does feel like, okay, he's the odd man out here. And I've said a lot of this, a lot of this is not news to everydayers, right? This is how I've kind of felt about Chinakhov for a long time, which is if he's not in the top 6, then there isn't a place for him in the roster. And it looks like he's not going to be in the top 6, so there isn't a place for him in the roster, which is frustrating, but I think kind of a foregone conclusion, right? And the team has decided what their top 6 is going to be. It doesn't have Igor Chinakhov in. The team has potentially decided what their top 9 is, and it doesn't have Igor Chinakhov in. So now they've got to decide, okay, what do we do with him? Do we trade him? Do we, let him sit and seethe and have his agent make more comments online and, force the hand? The problem is that if teams know that a player wants out, then you're going to get, $5 and that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee, or it used to. I wish coffee was $5. You know what I mean though? Like it's you're not going to get anything in return for him if teams know that he wants out and teams know that he wanted out. So you're kind of in a real rock and a hard place situation here of you don't have room to play him to raise his trade value, but right now his trade value is probably in the toilet, but also the only thing that's going to happen is that he's going to be traded. So it really is kind of a who blinks first kind of game. I will say that, for better or worse, Don Waddell probably doesn't blink first on account of how he doesn't really do anything fast. But the more this goes on and the longer this goes on, as I think that the return gets worse and worse. So we'll see. Overall, there were things I liked about that game and things I didn't like about that game. I thought Logan Thompson had a fantastic game. 35 saves for Logan Thompson. Very frustrating because the Blue Jackets really should have won this game and probably would have if Logan Thompson just had not decided to have an excellent game. So there it is. But I'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a brand new episode. I want to talk a little bit more about the defense, actually, because it sounds like Damon Hunt has made the team, which is very surprising to me. And also there were some comments made during this game. The play-by-play had Chris Clark, the assistant GM, on. of the Columbus Blue Jackets to talk a little bit about Damon Hunt. So I want to get into some of those comments as well. So we'll talk about that in tomorrow's episode because it really just kind of raises some more questions about this offseason. But we'll do that tomorrow. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. Comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And thank you once again for listening. Until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.